welcome to our next installment of our Deep Talks series. And we're kind of responding to a question today. Someone sent an email that says, how do I know God's will for my life? Or maybe expressed differently, how can I separate my wishes from God's wishes for my life? And I think that's an important question, and one that we wrestle with at numerous times throughout life. I suppose the first time I kind of ran up against this, I was a freshman in college, and I can't even remember who it was, but there was a young man, maybe he struggled a little bit in his dating life, and he went up to a girl, and he told the girl, first time he met her, he actually said this line to her: "I've been praying, and I want you to know that God's told me that I'm going to marry you." And without skipping a beat, the girl says, "I think you need to pray more." And I think that was a marvelous response. You see, we live in this world, even in the Christian world, that a little bit of if it makes you happy, then it's good. And in fact, sometimes it's even bled through to our church services that is a quest to get everybody happy or upbeat in a good mood. But that is not always what happens in life. So when we examine the question, how do we separate what God wants for our lives from what we want for our lives? Maybe there's a couple things we can say. And this is so brief. This is a big topic, but this is just maybe a very abridged version of the answer. I think one thing we need to realize is in all of the Bible, God never commands us to be happy. He does command us to be holy, which is different. And it tells us again and again. Holy is a different quality than happy. Holy means set apart. Holy means different. Holy means to have a level of purity and single-mindedness and wholeheartedness in life. The Bible commands us to love God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, and with all our strength. That's kind of holiness, all. But that still doesn't really answer the question. How do we know what God wants for our life versus our life? Here's maybe a couple quick rules. First, we need to always do the things that we know to be right. Stuff that we've been taught since we've been small, like the Ten Commandments. It's never right to steal. It's never right to murder. It's never right to covet, to lie, to commit adultery. We need to know there's just whole areas of life we need to stay away from. We don't need to rationalize it and give ourselves excuses. We also need to remember other biblical instructions like love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Love your wives. Love your spouses. Pray continually. All these are guidelines for a life well lived and a life that's lived in discovery of what God wants for us. We also need to ask this question. Does the thing we're thinking about, the words we want to say, the thing we want to do, does it express love for God? Does it express love for others? If it doesn't, then maybe we need to re-examine whether that thing needs to be done or needs to be said. We also live in a time where we hear this a lot. The first thing you have to do is learn to love yourself. I can think of no more foolish instruction than that. That's actually the opposite. It starts an inward-looking spiral where all we do is to look at what makes me happy. And that leads to a very isolated place, a life that's lived without an awareness of the people around us. And that's never good. The other thing is when God is asking us to do something, His voice usually sounds a lot different than mine. And I guess what I'm saying with that is if all I sense God asking me to do is stuff that makes me happy, then maybe it's not God's voice. God usually wants to stretch us, take us into new places, to challenge us a little bit, to do things that sometimes are difficult. If it sounds like something that I would never have thought of myself and I can't get away from it, it just might be God's voice. Examine it. Especially if someone you trust, someone with maturity, kind of affirms that in your life as well. But even this really doesn't answer the question. So I'm going to leave you with just one thought. How do I know what God desires for my life? And there's a key, and it's so simple that we miss it. How do I know God's will for my life? Lose mine. How do you know what God's will is for your life? Lose yours. We spend so much time on doing what we want, we leave little room for what God desires. Here's a dangerous prayer. God, whatever you want for my life, whatever you want me to do, I'm here. Here am I. If you want to stop me doing anything, pull me back. And if you ask me to turn right, I'll turn right. And just see what God starts to do and move and starts to accomplish in your life. The first step is having our one desire is to accomplish what God desires, not what I desire. Without that component, the rest really doesn't matter. Join us in a couple weeks for the next series, next installment in our series, Deep Talks. If you have any question, put it in the comments below. Challenge us. Ask us to expand on a topic. We'll be happy to answer and pursue your question or answer your objection. Like us, subscribe to us so you know when the next one happens. But we look forward to seeing you back here in a few weeks.